All right, we're gonna call the roll. Diane Parker. Not here. Jesse Mauer,
Here.
Johnny Kane. Nope. Christopher Williams,
Here.
TJ Kathy,
Here.
Brad Malden. Veronica Cordova. Here. Gary Knuckles.
Here.
Johnny Montiel. Nope. Janelle Combs. No. Antoinette.
Here.
And Javier. You're in his place.
Yeah, Daniel Boyd, fill in.
Okay.
Okay, we have a forum. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Item 3 is approval of the minutes for May 30th, 2024. They are in your packets. Everybody has them. You've had time to review. Think,
I have one possible note,
okay,
and I don't know if it would necessarily need to be fixed this time, but when you have more than one chief in the room and you refer to them as chief.
okay. Yes, we'll clarify that in the future.
Aside from that, I would make a motion that we accept the benefits. Second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Mauer, a second by Mr. Knuckles. All in favor?
We vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
We've never voted before, so.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're running a real meeting here. Okay, item 4, report updates from public safety departments. We have 3 that were submitted. We will start with the emergency management, Miss Antoinette. I never say your last name right.
That's perfect. That works.
Who's the third? I only have 2.
The police department and the fire department.
The police departments is just talking about an item. I don't believe there's a presentation.
No
Yeah.
presentation, nothing to go up.
Perfect. Okay, Antoinette.
Well, thank you for letting me speak. Once again, I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet. So this year we had a very active storm season. That seems to be the norm now. Every season, storm season seems to be worse than the previous. I can't remember when we set up the tornado sirens, if it was before or after the last meeting. So we actually did have a tornado heading towards Portales. We set the sirens. Due to that, we actually found out there was an error in one of our sirens. And we have scheduled, we have had some difficulty scheduling the maintenance of that. I tried to do it locally. We had a few people who said they could do it, then dropped out at the last minute. I do have a group who said they'll be able to do the maintenance this month. And I emailed them today to make certain that that's still ongoing. So we'll be able to get those up and fully running by next year, by next storm season. If that group works really well, we're actually thinking about hiring them out as a yearly contractor just to come in right before storm season, do normal maintenance and make certain they're all up and running before the monsoon. And we also had our fire support. Of course, the fire department does the bulk of the work on that one. Occasionally, emergency management gets called out to do a little bit of support as for housing for people who are displaced. We had no large scales rural fires. We've had rural fires, but nothing as huge as we've had in the past. Of course, the Hay fire and a couple of recent residential fires that both Johnny Montiel and I actually assisted with that. Of course, and the salt, the South Fourth, the salt fire, which was the big ones in the state. We did help with this. We did send the information to the state of our resources. The state chose to isolate most of their resources in Roswell. They wanted to keep it as a central location in the state so that resources weren't going everywhere. They were aware of the resources we had. They just chose to not use them. The police department did go out there and assist with the system, but that was the extent of what we did on our side. And this is simply a refresher of what the claims for the risk manager that we're doing. Of course, we do have the public tort claims, we have the city insurance claims and the workers' comp claims. I just want to give you a brief idea of what's going on with each claim we have. Next slide, please. So the public tort claims, I want to give you an idea of what the current month is as opposed to the previous month. This only goes up through August, which is the last month on your right. The darker color is more recent month. The lighter color is the previous month. So that's going to be August. The very last one will be August 24. Of course, the 23 is the lighter color going all the way back. So you can compare what our current ones are to the most recent ones. We've actually been able to bring a lot of these claims down. A lot of times, people just want to be heard. They have an issue that they want to complain about and they want it fixed without actually having to go through the tort claim process. So a lot of these are damaged fences due to trash pickup. And a lot of people, they just want to be heard, and I've been working with the superintendent over solid waste. And we've been talking directly to the public who actually has some of these issues, and they can be fixed by simply moving the dumpster 5 feet to the right. And we've been doing that for them, and that's actually stopped about 3 tort claims recently. So we're just gonna work closely with them and just try to correct them as they go. But of course, some of them go through. These actually, the 3 ones from last month, we actually didn't technically have any last month. These are litigations that have come through that are actually for months previously, but the notice came last month, so a little bit of a misleading slide. This is gonna be our city insurance claims. These are the claims that the city has damaged property, and we submit that to our insurance company to be reimbursed. Nothing last month, and the big one that we had is we're still working on the hailstorm. We're still processing. That's gonna be a long process, but we've had roof damage, we've had vehicle damage. So they split those into 2 separate claims. Instead of doing each individual vehicle, we're gonna do one huge clump of vehicles, which saves us a deductible. And it's gonna be a long-term ongoing claim. The fire department and the police department had the majority of the damage, and they're getting those work done, and we've been trying to get the insurance company to pay the repairs directly as opposed to going through the city, save us a little bit of paperwork and budget as well. Next slide. Workers' comp. So if you see that the total claims for the previous 12 months is going to be 19 claims as opposed to the 12 months previously is 13 claims. What we've been doing this year is we've been encouraging preventative workers' comp claims. If people, they have an exposure, if they had a minor dog bite, if it's just something to be covered up with a Band-Aid, we do encourage them to go get checked up, make sure they get their tetanus shot, just to prevent future ones. So that looks like that we actually have a lot of claims, but a lot of it isn't really true injuries. The last 3 that we've had, sorry, the last 5 that we've had, actually, I think only one of them has been an actual injury. Of course, the other ones are injuries too, but like I said, minor scratches that they've had some preventative maintenance or preventative treatment on that. And we've had 1 notice of injury that actually came in today. It's most likely not going to continue into a workers' comp, but we do want to make certain that we have that on file. In case a month from now, there's some sort of complication with that, we can actually turn that into a workers' comp and say that, yes, we did have notice of this, so it's still valid. And that is actually the end of it. Like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but do you have any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you so much for your report. Okay, item B is the police department.
Okay. Yeah, aside from everything going good within the department, we've got 2 certified officers that have hit the street since the last meeting, so that puts us up to 12 people on patrol, which is very beneficial. The way we've structured that is one of them still in training, but as soon as he gets off, he'll be the 5th one for one of the shifts. So we've got 2 for days, 2 for nights, and then our sergeant works in the middle, a split between the 2 shifts. And that 5th person is now working with the sergeant. So we'll have 12 hours a day where we'll have 4 officers on the street. So it's a whole lot better than what we've had in the past. But what I've got is been working on trying to get not just the traffic and photo enforcement cameras on the state highways where everybody's asking me for them at. Also, like we've discussed in the past, is trying to put like the flashing lights and different things along the square and all that. In order to get any of that on the highways, we have to, there's a process that the DOT is trying to figure out. And I require a resolution requesting from the city, requesting them to allow us to put any of these things along the highway. Along their right of ways, whether it's on our property or not, anything that goes on their right of way, we have to do that. So. Not just for the traffic cameras, but also for, like we discussed in the past, like the the ones that'll flash the red and blue lights, slow people down, things like that. All of that, so. So I was just hoping I could try to get an endorsement from the Public Safety Committee before I take this to council at the next meeting. And I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I have one. So those are gonna go on every major highway that come into town or,
No, we don't want to put them that far out, but like, talking to, Times Remembered, they're asking if we could get something out there on the one way. Cause it's to help slow people down.
right?
So anything that's gonna be along the state highway right of ways, which would be Third Street, 70 all the way through town. C to into D on the way out. Some of our more problematic areas, which, I mean, we've had. On 206, we had our two traffic fatalities. That were, speed was a huge factor in causing those fatalities. So it's not for specific locations. It's just so that we can have that permission to put them along anything that would be
Right,
considered.
anything
state
in state highway.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and I mean, I'm not looking to put 12 up or anything like
Right.
that. But just in a couple of these locations, and then if hopefully people slow down, and then we can look at a different problem area and try to move them. Or eventually phase them out, but if we want to put those other warning lights and things along there, we have to have that.
Right.
But with the funds from the current systems, we purchased the new school zone lights to put up on Abilene here.
Mhm.
Had Mr. Chavez had the 811 call for the line spots, so he can get those put up hopefully within the next week or so.
Wow.
They're solar, so there's no electricity to be run. And yeah, so it cost us a little over, right around 5,000 for two of them, so one on each end.
Mhm.
And then we can identify hopefully areas to improve those on too. But if we wanted to do something on Third Street by the junior high, again, we'd still have to have this permission to try to allow me to go forward with the request to DOT.
Okay.
And I was at that meeting with New Mexico DOT and they did give us some pointers on what we needed to do to get all of those situated to where we could be allowed to place those. So there's quite a bit of a long proposal that you have to do, so.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So what you're asking for now is permission or approval from us,
Support.
support from us,
Yes.
that's better said, support from us.
Yes, sir.
To ask for the DOT permission or to ask to submit the DOT.
Yes, sir. That's pretty much what I'm looking for is, a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee to the council on this. So hoping that would.
I make a motion that we provide that recommendation. Second that.
I have a motion by Mr. Mauer and a second by Mr. Knuckles. I almost called y'all reverse names.
All right.
All in favor?
Good answer.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Oppose.
We have, did you vote?
Sorry, yes.
You vote, okay. We have 5, 4, and 1 against, motion carries. Any other questions for Chief Williams? Okay. Item C is the fire department and Chief Kathy does have.
I do. So thank you for allowing me to present this evening. As we go to the second slide. As always, our mission is to be prepared and ready to serve, provide the highest quality service to our community. We had a very successful FY 25 in grant funding. We received 205,000 from the FY 25 vehicle purchase grant and 200,000 from capital outlay that those two team together will buy us one ambulance with a stretcher that will be a 4-wheel drive. We're still waiting on all the distributions from the EMS Bureau for the grants that we received there. But we did also receive a little over 84,000 for cardiac monitors, a little over 37,000 for chest compression devices. Then here recently, we were awarded 225,000 for the first year of the FY25 firefighter recruitment fund. That enables us to hire one more position per shift that pays their benefits and salary for that entire year up to 75,000. The second year it pays 50% and third year 25%. Also, our EMS Fund Act has increased quite a bit. Our initial award letter was 100,000, which is a huge benefit from previous years that will go to assist in covering some of the extra cost as well as our day-to-day operations. We've also applied for the FY25 fire protection grant. It's up to 600,000 for a fire engine. The one we have spec'd out is a 4-wheel drive Class A pump and roll engine. Right now, our average age at Portales Fire Department is 30. Average experience is 4 years. We have 8 personnel with 1 year or less experience as it stands. PRC did come down with some new driver requirements for the ambulances, which is 21 years old. That's hindering our recruitment efforts. I did visit with Kyle Thornton at the EMS Bureau, and they're working on it, and I'm doing my best to assist in any way so that we can get that corrected moving forward. But I did talk to the PRC, and there's no changes as of yet. And looking at our turnover this last year and so far in 2024, we've lost 8 personnel, which is a lot better than the previous 2 years. Granted, we have a few more months left in this year, but things are improving in that area. Looking at our run volume from January 1st to the end of August, we've run just under 2,000 calls, 87% for EMS and 13% for fire. 98 cardiac calls with 4 cardiac arrests, 253 traumatic injuries, 97 breathing problems, 89 psychiatric problems, 60 seizures, 39 structure fires, which is a huge increase from the previous year. We had 20 last year, and so far this year, we've already had 39. And then grass fires were under, as Antoinette mentioned earlier, at 24 so far this year. The concerning number is that 392, the 27.8% of the time where we have more calls than we have people to respond to. That causes delays in response and care to our community that we as first responders aren't okay with. As it stands this year, our EMS response time averages 5.1 minutes, fire response time of 6.4 minutes. As you all know, response time is a very important metric for managing our service. Looking at calls outside the city limits, just under 400 so far this year, a little over 20% of total run volume, average of 49 average calls per month. Looking at our current EMS certifications on the next slide. You did good. I know, I'm going quick. So I have it broken down by shift, and it shows you in the orange, those that are unlicensed, in the yellow that are EMT basic, intermediate is green, and paramedic is blue. So we have a pretty good balance between all the shifts and trying to maintain that. Now that does include our open positions as well as the ones that were included from the firefighter recruitment grant. As we go to the next one, it's going to say pretty much the same breakdown, but just of fire certifications that show the number of personnel without certifications, those with fire 1 and 2, and so on. As we go to the next slide, and this is the one that I'm most excited about. This semester, we have 12 people in EMS classes as it stands. We have 4 in paramedic, 4 in intermediate, 4 in basic, and then we just had 4 complete their hazmat awareness and operations. We also have a hazmat class coming up in October to catch all the people that were just hired. Then we have emergency vehicle driving in October. Then in November, we're going to do firefighter 1 and 2, as well as fire instructor, December pump operations. And that will hopefully get a lot more fire certifications. And then in January, we're looking at fire officer 1 for our personnel. And this is the burning question on a lot of people's minds, is with the extra person per shift, can we staff station 2? Not consistently yet. As I mentioned before, we have 12 plus people in class. We're in standby season where we have anywhere from 15 to 30 standbys a month, and that yo-yo effect negatively impacts morale of bouncing back and forth. As it stands, we have 8 to 9 per shift if we can get fully staffed. Each shift will have 2 to 3 with no license and 2 to 5 with no fire certifications. If we split our existing personnel into 2 stations, my fear is gonna create 2 weaker stations instead of having 1 strong station. Until we can get those personnel certified and trained. And the other PRC rule that affects us is we cannot staff that station with unlicensed personnel. For it to be a first out call, we are supposed to respond to EMTs on that initial call. Moving on, so our ongoing projects is to increase staffing levels on each shift so that we can make a safer environment for our community and our personnel. We would really like to get 3 more personnel certified as paramedics and all personnel intermediate and fire 1 and 2 certified, which, as you can see by our rigorous training schedule, we're working diligently to do. As far as equipment, we're still trying to find a way to fund our apparatus replacement plan. We're still working on maintenance of aging high mileage units. We have a truck in our truck room with the pump torn apart, awaiting parts for repairs right now. We have an ambulance that's awaiting a turbo at RNJ as we speak. We are hopefully going to be able to add our 5th type 1 ambulance with the grant and the capital outlay. And then we're working on funding for a new fully equipped rescue engine as well. Some of our midterm goals is to decrease burnout, improve retention and recruitment, implement and try to find an incentive for our health and wellness program. Some long-term goals that I know it's kind of weird for me to talk about a 3rd staff station if we can't staff our 2nd station. But realistically, based on the run volume data that we have, we should be at 15 people a shift. And historically, we can house 11 a shift, maybe 12 with our 2 stations now. So if we do get to that safe staffing level, we will need to be looking at that 3rd staff station, most likely in the southwest portion of the city. I'd really like to build a training facility eventually that can accommodate fire 1 and 2 burns, especially structure burns. That way, when we send people off for fire training, they're not gone as long. And then if we add an administrative office to that training facility, it increases our fire funding. So that we can have a true training facility with a training room and get an extra bump in our fire funding. So our current needs is to increase shift staffing and to improve community and personnel safety. We really need to improve public safety hourly wages to retain and recruit our highly trained personnel and find a way to fund our vehicle replacement plan. With that, I thank you for your support. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions?
So-
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
so your ideal staffing right now would be 15 per shift?
Yes, sir. Based
Right.
on run volume and call frequency,
Right now, we're at 8.
9 with the grant.
Okay,
And that additional staff, what, so it's not a population increase. Where are we seeing the, and you may not be able to answer this question, but
I can
where are
give
we
it a shot.
seeing the increase
So
call volume?
a lot of the increase in call volume has been on the psychiatric side. That's been a huge increase for us and for PD. As well as we've just seen a lot of increases in overdoses and seizures and other areas that are related to that. One of the biggest increases we saw in 2019 was falls, which that's a normal big call volume for us just because we live in an elderly population. But the main thing was during COVID, people didn't feel comfortable going and picking up their family member. Since that time, we've seen a huge increase in car wrecks. And I'm not sure why, other than just does.
We drove for 2 years.
Yeah, maybe so, maybe so.
or could it be that they're under the influence?
Possibly, and it's hard for me to gather that data because there's 2 ways for me to look at the information in our reporting system. I can either look at it from dispatch reason or by primary impression of the provider. Either way, there's some flaws in gathering that data that doesn't give me a pinpoint data that gives me something specific that says this is 100% the cause. It just gives us hints of the trend.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So if we talked before about retention plans. What, has there been any progress at all on a retention plan? Or for that matter, a vehicle replacement plan?
So funding is always going to be the issue. And you know, just as well as I do, that that's always a struggle. And I say that with the new city manager looking at me. We are working on improved pay plans, but again, finding funding to support that pay plan. Because it's not just public safety that's suffering. In my time as interim, it was very evident that there's many departments, all departments of the city that need help, not just with pay plan, but more personnel. But as it stands for the fire department, it does me no good to increase positions if I can't keep the certified people. And if I can't retain the certifications that we're paying for. When Lovington's starting out at over $19 an hour for uncertified, Artesia at 21 something, it's difficult.
So you're working on the improved pay plans as we speak?
In my time as interim, we have it prepared. It's just a matter of finding the funding to implement that throughout the entire city.
I'd be very interested as, you know, I don't know that we have much to say about anybody else's salary, but the public safety, but, and we may not have anything to say about that. But I would be very interested in seeing what that proposal is and being. I think it would be important that we were involved in advocating for that whenever the time came.
I can say that the pay plan is created. Right now with the new finance director. It's not it's not something that's off the table. But as she gets settled into her job, we are gonna look at that, and that's probably within the next couple of months. It is on my radar though.
Thank you.
Sorry, not sorry.
It's fine. I got it.
And they're working on their final budgets as well with all department heads, so
Right.
hopefully that will be something that we can bring forward sooner than later.
Mhm.
So I have a question. So I was looking at the slide where it has like your certified,
The EMS one.
the EMS certifications.
Say on there.
No, I don't know why mine didn't print very good. So we have 3 on each shift, and you said, and I may have got these confused, we don't have an overlap of shifts, correct,
No.
for your department?
No, we do not.
So if you would move, and I know like for the B shift, you probably couldn't do that because there's only 2. But if you would split your personnel into both of the stations, you know, fire station 2 is always on my heart
Yes,
for
ma'am.
getting it staffed. Is there a way where if everybody responds to the call like they normally do?
The problem is if we get more often than not, well, 28% of the time, we get more than one call at a time. And if I put 2 people over there with having 2 to 3 people with no certifications, that limits their capability and decreases their safety and their capability when they do respond.
Okay, so they just can't all respond at the same time from each station.
If it's the first call, there's a potential. But then the second call, the third call, that happens in anywhere from 30 minutes of the same time frame to 2 minutes of the same time frame. That's the issue we're running into, is our initial response capability doesn't meet the call volume demand.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And then on the fire side, we have more personnel without certifications. So I can't stick 2 uncertified firefighters over there.
Correct.
It wouldn't be safe. And as it stands with 9, if I put 3 over there, that leaves 6 at the main station. Well, if we have 2 people gone for class, then that puts us understaffed.
So with all these positions, so I understand correctly, with all these positions, not everybody goes out on the same call.
On a typical ambulance call, we send 3 personnel.
Okay, that's
On
where
a
I,
fire call, everybody responds.
okay,
Because we have to try to be prepared for that second, third.
fourth call.
Both calls. My fear is that third call is gonna be an active structure fire with somebody trapped. With everybody else engaged in other operations, and then we're relying on overtime to come in and make a response. And then it'd be 2 young guys with no certifications that don't know
Right,
when to enter, when to not enter. That creates a huge liability for me and for the city.
And how long do they have from the time they're called in back in from overtime?
So
service?
there's no required response anymore. We got away from mandatory callback because that was a huge deterrent for a lot of people as far as recruitment. And there's no time limit. Historically, when I was raised up in the fire department, you had 15 to 20 minutes. But if we get people now.
Okay, thank you.
Keep checking me if I'm wrong. You respond 3 on an ambulance. One of those is, officer's vehicle or shift commander typically.
It can be, it just depends on that shift's makeup. Like as it stands today, Lieutenant James with Chief Frank being out is the only paramedic on today.
Okay,
So he responds, and then if he's not needed, he can break free.
right. He can respond to a second call.
Yes, sir.
Based on the acuity of
Yes,
the
sir.
call.
Which is, as you know, the need for more paramedics per shift. That way that frees that up for multiple responses.
Right.
Not to mention if our officer in charge is tied up on an ambulance call and a structure fire breaks out. And then the first guy that shows up is 6 months in the job. How can he safely run command of that structure fire?
Sure.
And that's the struggle that we always run into and always have. All the incident command classes that you go to say the incident commander shouldn't pump a truck, shouldn't pull a hose, shouldn't pull a meter. But in our department, that's just not realistic.
No.
How many budgeted open positions do you have currently?
Budgeted with the grant too.
2, okay. And you're still hosting the recruitment?
We're working to get applications. We were supposed to test on the 31st, but we only had 1 applicant that was under 21. So we had to hold off and try to gather more applicants until those PRC changes can be made.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, with that, we'll go on to item 5, other business. Any other matters not known about or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the posting of the agenda. Do we have any other business or anything that you'd like to add from the sheriff's department?
The sheriff's office, no.
Sorry, sheriffs. Anybody else? Okay, with that, we are adjourned.